Hello, everyone. My name is Young P. Choi, and I am the VP of Programs for the Irvington PTSA. And I want to welcome you. Let me share my screen. Hopefully you guys can see that. Okay, so this is part 7 of our career series, Careers in Journalism. So we'll be talking to some seasoned professionals to give you insight about what kind of jobs are there. So when I think of journalism, I think of this quote by Philip Graham: "Journalism is the first rough draft of history." Um, in terms of if you want to go study journalism, the U.S. News and World Report puts out a list every year, and this is their top list for colleges, or if you want to go for journalism. And if you see, these are the costs. Some of them are in-state and out-state cost. Let's go to the next one. Areas of journalism. There's, as you can see from that list, there's different types of areas that you can actually go into, like investigative, watchdog, online, broadcast. And the bottom, this is the link where I've got this information from. Okay. How to become a journalist? Well, you obtain an undergraduate degree, either in journalism, mass communication, or English. Maybe work for a school media, some type of school newspaper or school radio, TV station. You can start a blog and create a portfolio, seek an internship, and maybe a local newspaper or local radio station or so. Write your resume, submit job postings, and maybe consider some freelance positions if you don't get a full-time job first. At Irvington, these are our counselors, and if you wanted to ask them more about certain schools that have programs with journalism, you can email them or maybe stop in to talk to them. Our college and career specialist at Irvington is Bindu Chopla. And you can also talk to her about if there's a certain school maybe that you're interested in attending that has a good journalism program. She would be the one you talk to if you would like to maybe have their admissions counselor come in and speak to you or speak to other people about journalism. Let me introduce our speakers tonight. We have Nanette Asimov, higher education reporter for the San Francisco Chronicle. She has a BA in sociology from Queens College in New York, master's in journalism from Columbia University in New York. And her job, she writes all about colleges. She's written about FAFSA problems, the Gaza protests, admissions, affordability, and more. During the pandemic, she wrote about COVID-19 and edited other reporter stories about the crisis. Her earliest stories about K-12 education led to changes in state law and policies. We also have Delicia Yard, who is senior editor at FCB Health, and she can explain more about that company. She's got a BA in English from State University of New York, SUNY at Albany. She worked as a senior editor at various healthcare magazines and other publications, and an editor of publications for management consultants. And we're supposed to have another speaker who is not here with us yet. Hopefully she'll be able to join while our meeting goes on. Lulu Chang, Vice President of Digital Content for ABC News. She has a BFA in Film and Television at Tisch School of Arts with minors in journalism and politics from New York University, NYU. She's held senior roles at other news media organizations, including CBS News, CNBC, NBC Universal, Bloomberg News, CNN, and Yahoo. So let me stop share. Okay, so what we can do right now is go into our speakers talking about themselves and their journey. And Nanette, do you want to go first?
Sure. I just want to say I'm so happy to be here because I have an opportunity to talk about journalism and the incredibly fantastic career that it is. And I just, if I could come away and know that one of you, or maybe more, we're interested in journalism, I would be so happy, because journalism is the backbone of democracy. It's the career, the practice of journalism that distinguishes the United States form of government, from almost every other country where you do not have free speech. But journalism is the exercise of free speech. And I have spent a long time doing journalism, and I am as excited about this career today after 40 years. And that, as when I first started at age 25. So I saw that list of schools, journalism schools, and I mean, if I were you guys and I saw that, I would be so scared. I would think, I don't have $65,000 to go, to journalism school. First of all, you don't need to go to journalism school. It is great. I learned so much about the background and history of journalism from there, and really have a network of colleagues all across the country that I rely on. It is a wonderful thing, but there's scholarships and there's all kinds of help. So don't be intimidated by that. I didn't start out wanting to be in journalism because, of course, my father was a journalist, and I did not want to do what my father did. But when it came time and then I did go to college, and I did not major in English. And I also saw that and really do not think that English is actually the right major for journalism. It's fine if you want to do it, but you're going to be writing about politics. You're going to be interviewing people. So sociology, which is what I majored in. There's politics. There's math. I just was talking with people who are using AI and applying it to journalism. So AI, if you're interested in computer science, you can apply that to journalism. So whatever interests you, whatever you want to major in, that's good for journalism. So I did that. And then at the end of my college, I was talking to my father, and I said, what am I going to do? What should I do next? And he said, well, what do you like to do? And it was writing and talking to people, and I'm interested in things going on in the world. Well, guess what? That's journalism. And so I did go to the Columbia Journalism School, and it's a one-year program, and it was great. And I'm looking down at my little cheat sheet because it says, what led me to become a higher education reporter? Well, I started out at the San Francisco Chronicle. I really had never been a reporter before, and I didn't know how to do it. And so I got a job with the Chronicle as a copy editor, just, correcting stories and doing grammar. And then I thought, nobody wants to do that. That's how I'll get the job. And that's exactly what happened. And today, what you guys would do to get a job would be an internship, for example. There's so many internships on newspapers, and you might have heard, well, who reads a newspaper anymore? How many newspapers are there anymore? Well, it turns out that nonprofit journalism sites are popping up like magic, and there are places to go if you're interested in that, to look. It's all online right now. Nobody's really doing print anymore. Print is kind of going out of favor, as you know, but the internet makes this incredible opportunity. So there's extremely large number of journalism jobs now, and so you can get internships. And I actually had a journalism internship many years ago, but I was lucky enough to get on the San Francisco Chronicle, and I started out writing about elephants and things like that, and then I just got into more serious stuff in education. I think I used up my time? Did I run up against my minutes?
Oh, no, just go ahead.
Okay, so one day, a long time ago, I thought that I was going to be writing about, covering some city hall meeting or something like that. And I walked into the newsroom my first day in the general news section. And this was a long time ago, it was pre-internet. So they handed me a stack of papers like this big, and it turned out to be the test scores for every school in California. I mean, there were hundreds and hundreds. And they said, here, if you do this, you're the education reporter. And so I went through all these test scores and I had to write a story about it. And I learned how. If you guys want to go into journalism, you'll learn how to, whether it's education or sports or politics, whatever it is, you'll learn how. It's not hard. And I became their education reporter. And the one thing I will say about journalism, you could say, Nanette, how can you do the same job for 40 years? Don't you get bored? Well, every single day in journalism is different from yesterday and tomorrow. It's just a completely different. Like today, I just raced back from Stanford University where I was at the Gaza protest talking to people about why they're, sleeping in tents next to the student union. And so I wrote that story and came back and have an opportunity to talk to you. But the last thing I'll say about journalism is this. It gives you a ticket into the great events of the world. If you're a entertainment writer, you're talking to celebrities. If you're a sports writer, you're talking to sports figures. If you're me, you can just walk into any situation and you have your press pass and you can ask people in power because you can ask them questions. That's the beauty of it. You can just say, why are you charging this amount of money? How much does it cost? Or why are you sleeping in a tent in the middle of Stanford University? And that's the joy of it.
Thank you so much. And that's very interesting story you had. We're gonna turn over to Delicia to share her journey.
Hi, everybody. Ms. Asimov, that was amazing. Can we all just pretend I said everything she said? And I agree with so much of what she said. Also, I promise you, I live in a world of color. I don't know what I did or how to get off of it, but somehow I'm in black and white mode here. Or something like that. I can't tell if it's full black and white, but it's funny. First when Ms. Chen held up the when she showed where the speakers all went to school, everything was in New York. So I want to assure you, you can have a good life and a good career, even if you don't go to school in New York. Also, speaking of school, I do agree with Ms. Asimov that English with the classics and stuff is really not the way. It's not going to give you that full foundation you need, except everything you know, every little thing you learn, even from the craziest places, it all feeds into your perspective, which is your perspective is everything you have when you take some kind of, when you go into journalism. So I think that's really important. Like no matter what you do, if you have that desire to go into journalism, everything from your background is going to feed into that and make you so much stronger. So nothing is wasted. There is no waste in journalism. I will say though, I did minor in sociology, which is Ms. Asimov's major, so there might be some connection there too. I did major in English, and then I just knew I wanted to get into publishing. And the funny thing is, unlike most people I know, I really don't like to write at all. I find it very difficult to just look, at a blank piece of paper, a blank screen, and have to start. But what I love doing is, probably because I can give criticism better than I can take it, I love like helping people once they've written something. I'm really good at helping rewrite and revise and edit and always thinking about that end user. Who is the person who's going to be receiving your information? And you want to tailor it to them, like not tell them what they want to hear, but give them the information that that audience mostly needs. And that's something to keep in mind when you do this. So with me, Ms. Asimov is absolute classic, amazing, like to work for the San Francisco Chronicle and to have your whole career there is just so impressive. Like, I'm blown away. For me, I worked in magazines, and Ms. Chen, one of her sorry, I'm going by her maiden name, Ms. Choi. Sorry. Okay. One of the things she listed was trade journalism, and that's really what I do. I've worked for trade magazines, so like instead of like, I don't even know if anyone knows this, like People magazine and this, all the popular, or like a GQ or something. Instead of working for the popular things, I worked in the healthcare sector. Actually, I started on an electronics magazine, and I started as a sales secretary, like the ad, they sell the pages in the magazine for ads. That's what keeps the magazine going. You write a story, that's not what pays for the magazine. It's the people who buy the advertising. So as a sales secretary, I was like, oh, I can't wait. I want to, they all say get a foot in the door. So I took the job. And I couldn't wait to get, my first editorial job. But as it turns out, stuff I learned in that 1.5 years being a sales secretary helped me so much. Again, I'll use the word perspective, like to really understand like the publications I was working on and how the whole thing came together, not just like me writing my story and how it fit in the magazine. So again, you get knowledge from the craziest places, and it really helped me. It really created a framework that really helped me understand the whole business. And I eventually, there was an opening for an editorial assistant, and I had made it clear to to human resources that I was hoping to get something in that. And so it's always good to let people know what you want. You don't, not in a complaining way, but just, this is what, oh my gosh, sorry, hold on, I'm sorry. Sorry about that. See, gotta be ready for anything in editorial work. So it's good to, let people know you never know when someone's gonna have an opportunity for you. And also, opportunities can come the strangest places. If you want to be a journalist, you don't just have to look like newspapers or website, news websites or CNN or things like that. I had a friend who worked for a newspaper in the supermarket industry. Believe it or not, there's an industry for everything, and there are publications for every industry. You'd be shocked. And she eventually got an opportunity to work for some company, like an accounting firm, but it was in the communications department. And her skills from, it wasn't like she was in the supermarket industry anymore. She was going to accounting, but the skills transferred over. So if you find ever, that you're kind of interested, you get your experience in one industry, but you really kind of want to move to that one, but you're like, oh, well, who's going to take me in the supermarket industry? I have no experience. Think about where you do have experience and where your skills might transfer over to get yourself in there. Like again, a communicate. If you've written for a magazine or a newspaper, you can write for the communications department of a company that really interests you. So, always keep your eyes open and your mind open about how you can make yourself relevant where you want to be, where you want to go. I had all these notes. I got myself all off track because I was very excited about everything Ms. Asimov said. I think she structured things really well. I don't know if I maybe used up my time anyway, but I'm trying to think if there's sorry, let me just look at my notes for 1 second. One of the things that Ms. Choi asked us to talk about was the time commitment. And it really, I think no matter what you do, you have to love it and you have to be prepared to work really hard, and maybe you'll get a break and you'll have something where there's civilized hours, or where you'll just end up in the right place without having to really work and work, all the time. But at the beginning of your career, it's going to happen probably where you're the one who's got to stay late and work late and do that kind of thing. But if you love it and you're learning from it and getting something out of it, it just can be very worth it. It really can. Do we have more? I'm trying to.
Yeah, no, thanks, Delicia.
Okay.
That was a lot of stuff. I hope a lot of people now know a little bit more what is the difference between trade magazine, trade.
Oh, actually, can I just say one more thing? I'm sorry.
Yeah,
And
yeah, sure.
actually, Ms. Asimov can really talk about this. I mean, the thing, like, I know she and I always grew up learning was, you have to be very impartial. You have to be very fair. But I think in this day and age, it's really impossible. I think it's almost unrealistic to expect anyone to have no opinion about something. I mean, how do you deal with that? If you don't mind my asking, Ms. Asimov.
So I'm very glad you brought that up, because that is an essential characteristic of good journalism, even today, impartiality. We all have our opinions. I have I've been doing a lot of coverage of the Gaza protests. I don't know, I'm assuming that you guys know all about these protests that are on college campuses now, and, maybe even also at high schools. But I have opinions, and if I put them in my stories, not only will I be fired, because it is not my job to share Nanette's opinion, but not only would I be fired, they won't let me put my opinion. It doesn't do you as the reader any good to have me tell you or preach at you, here's what you think, or here's, it would be me manipulating you. Why do you care what I think? I want to give you, my job is to give you the tools and the information so that you, Sandy, Maggie, Usha, Arpana, Ben, I've seen all your names. You guys need to make up your mind when you're reading, whether it's in a newspaper or it's online or in audio, whatever it is. You need to be able to trust that I am giving you factual information, and then you, whoever you are, can decide what you think is right. So I totally understand what you mean about, in this day and age, it's hard to not have an opinion. You are right about that, because that's what a lot of people are doing. They're with the proliferation of social media, and that we can get news and information everywhere. Everybody's got an opinion, which is all the more reason why good journalists should not join in that loud crowd. There's too many voices of opinions out there, and the only one that matters is yours, and you can't form it if you don't have the information.
Yeah, and to all you future journalists, we are relying on you, because now with everyone having a website or a TikTok or whatever, like everything suddenly becomes like it's the most legitimate thing in the world, and it's not like that. And we need more people like you out there to make sure both sides of the story are presented.
That's why I'm so excited really to be here and tell you about it. Even iPhone over there needs to hear this, because because people don't understand this really anymore. And the more journalists, good journalists we have, I think the stronger our democracy. I mean, you see it all with this phrase fake news and all that. That is just not true. We need to really not let go of the importance of good, fair, impartial journalism.
I think
Thanks.
that's really important.
You two. We're supposed to actually have another speaker, but I think she got tied up somehow. So I'm going to just launch into Q&A. So if anybody has a question, you can feel free to either raise your hand or unmute yourself and ask, or type a question in chat and I'll read it. So does anybody have a question for our speakers? All right, very quiet.
If nobody has a question, I have a question.
All right, Nanette.
So I see it's hard, you know, for us, because I'm just seeing like names on a screens there instead of, I mean, you guys are probably used to that, but I don't do Zoom a whole lot. It's probably really common, but so I'm just assuming there's real people behind there. And my question for you guys is, can you all tell me where you learn what's going on in the world? Where do you get your news? I would love to know that. Claire, where do you get your news?
That's me.
That's you.
Yeah. Sorry, I just remind this meeting, so I just missed the part you present. So for myself, yeah, from internet, mostly from the internet title, and TV and some broadcast. Yeah.
Okay. Can I ask more? I'm just going to pick you guys at random unless you want to just volunteer. Who's volunteering?
Well, can I just, somebody typed a question in the chat, and then I will get Ben's. So the one in the chat says, what are recommended majors in college if a student wants to pursue a journalism career?
I would say anything you want, you know. I found sociology to be great because what sociology was the study of people and groups and trends and things. And that's my area that I love to pursue in education and all kinds of stuff. But again, if you wanted to study like computer science and AI or you know, something hard sciencey, you can write about science journalism. You can write about, okay, so there was a presentation I just attended the other day about this AI expert who used his AI skills to do journalism by, how do I put this? He could tell what was going on in Israel by using AI and pulling together social media things and triangulating. The whole point is, I can't describe it, but he used his AI to do excellent journalism. So you can do anything. Political science, English is fine. I mean, whatever you're interested in, you can use it and spin it off into journalism.
But I will say, have a good foundation of the English language or whichever language you are going to be practicing in, like even if it means a composition course or something. I mean, I know these days everyone speaks in abbreviations and this and that, but I mean, it's good to have good English. You know? It's just.
Thank you for saying that. You're absolutely right. Yes.
Ben, did you still have a question?
No, actually, I was going to answer their questions. I mean,
Oh, yeah,
about where we get our news. I'm here with my daughter. Thank you guys for coming on. And previously we used to watch, news on like the television or the mainstream media, like the networks. But lately I found myself just getting news off of Google and my phone, and my daughter the same. And she mentioned that, she gets like news whenever she, just looks at her phone. So, that's where it has come to, basically.
Okay. Anybody else?
But also, it's not just the medium of where you get it, like TV or from your devices or whatever, but like what it is you're listening to. I mean, I didn't really talk about what I do now, but basically, I do a lot of editorial work for pharmaceutical clients, and we have to fact check everything that they put out there. They can't just say, "Oh, we can cure this, we can cure that." We have to fact check everything, and we're really careful about what sources we use. Like, we don't say, "Oh, let's check Wikipedia to see this is okay." We go to Journal of the American Medical Association and look at articles there, and like, you have to know, or like the Mayo Clinic or Cleveland Clinic or something. There are certain sites. Even if we're just trying to check like on a more grammatical thing, you don't just go to like Urban Dictionary to find out how to say, you go to Merriam-Webster. You have to have your solid, vetted, very valid sources. So it's okay if you are going to news sites that maybe I don't agree with, or if I'm going where you don't agree with, but just tell me that you're going to like can't think of the word, but like a legitimate source, as opposed to like just maybe some wacko who's got something going on YouTube or something.
Well,
There's good things on YouTube too. Just make sure you don't get caught up in all the wackos.
I think that you make a marvelous point. That's why I kind of want to hear a little bit more about where people do it, and then we can talk about where this news actually comes from. Who else? Who
I
else?
think Francis Little have a hand up, and then we have a chat in the question in the chat. After any major, is there any certification to pursue the profession of journalism? So do you have to get any certification after you?
That is the beauty of the American form of journalism. The answer is no. You are a person, and therefore, if you want to practice journalism, you can practice journalism. You don't even need a college degree. You don't need a graduate degree. You don't need any of that. You can take your pen and your paper and go out and start doing journalism just by talking to people. You know what you need to know? Here's what you need to know if you want to do journalism. You need to know what is news. And I'm just going to talk about that for 2 minutes. A lot of people just don't know what news is, even adults. People just don't know. So I'm just gonna say there's no such thing as making a news decision. I'm going to write good news today, or I'm going to write bad news today. That's not the definition of news, good or bad. That's what we might think so, but it's not. Here's the definition of news. Man bites dog. So if a dog bites somebody, that's just what dogs do. That's not news. The dog bit the man, take the man to the hospital. Don't call the journalist. But if the man bites the dog, that's weird. That's what we call counterintuitive, unexpected, something different. That's news. We can look later and see if it was good news or bad news. It doesn't matter. What it means is something different and unexpected. So if you're, Gowrie or Roy or Geetha, and you're walking down the street and you see something unexpected, I'm not thinking of anything offhand, but again, to pick today's example, maybe it's, people putting up tents to protest the war. That's unexpected. That's different. You're the journalist. You write about it and you can post it. You're a journalist, period.
Francis, did you have your hand up?
Yeah, so I wanted to answer the question about like where I get my news from, and then I also have a question for you. So first, like where I get my news from, uh recently it's mostly been like I follow the Instagram accounts of a bunch of like major news outlets, including the Chronicle, and including like other news outlets in the US as well. And I also get email newsletters from a few sites as well, like ProPublica and The Hill. And yeah, that's where I get most of my news lately. I had a question. So I'm actually with our school newspaper. So I'm an editor there. And I was just wondering, like, as journalists, how do you like if like for example, public opinion is really against the story that you're writing for some reason, or like in our case, it's like sometimes it's the school, sometimes it's like the administration. How do you respond to that, and how do you deal with it? And how do you move forward with that?
Well, I'll tell you a very quick story, then I want to ask you to tell me how they're against it. I was covering the rally at UC Berkeley a couple days ago, and I was talking to people and asking them, you know, for their quotes, and they were very reluctant. And the speaker who was addressing the crowd, she suddenly said, and Nanette Asimov, if she's here, don't talk to her. She's, you know, terrible. And the San Francisco Chronicle is terrible. And that's an example of people being against you. Like, she called me out by name. I couldn't believe it. And the reason was that I had written something months ago that she didn't like, this speaker, and she contacted me and we talked about it. And I thought that she made some good points and some not good points, and you know, I learned something from her, and I changed the story a little bit based on the information that she gave, but she still wasn't satisfied, and there was nothing I could do about that. She called me out by name because she I guess she knew I was there, and it was kind of painful to me, but it goes with the territory. Now, will you tell me, what do you mean the administration is like against what you're writing? What do you mean?
I mean, like sometimes, for with regards to the admin, there have been some issues, especially covering like controversial topics such as like the war, in Israel and Palestine, where like the actual principal has stepped in to kind of look at that and sort of make sure that it's not offending anyone, including like teachers. And I'm just wondering, like, because sometimes it feels like we're being maybe a bit too safe. So and also we have sometimes in the student body, like after we put out the paper, we see like Instagram stories of people being like, oh my goodness, worst paper ever, or or I think today we just published a new issue today, and we saw a story that said like there are from our opinion section that was like there is such a thing as a wrong opinion. So I was just wondering how you as like professional journalists like tend to deal with that.
Okay.
Can I just say something? Francis, I don't even have to go to my professional days. I can go back because I was the features editor of my high school paper too. And I remember so many instances of exactly what you're talking about. And what stands out to me in my memory is how the opposition then became the story, and you know, as opposed to what you originally were writing about to get the opposition. And you know, that it was just very interesting, you know, the focus shifted over to like, you know, oh, are you being oppressed now and not being able to do it? And you know, it became a whole different avenue to explore. And that's just, I mean, this isn't helpful, but that's just how I remember things evolving. And everything came out anyway, because you then would start writing about how the administration asked you not to publish the story or that kind of thing.
Yes, I think that you are tackling something very difficult, especially with this war and these sentiments right now. It's so hard. I mean, at the Chronicle, we really want to be fair. We want to get both sides, and we don't, we know we're going to offend people, but it won't be because we didn't try to be fair and impartial. I mean, obviously, this person who called me out by name, she didn't care how fair I was being. If I wasn't going to be on her side, she was going to tell everybody to be against me. However, that doesn't mean you shouldn't write it just because it's hard. And if I'm in a student newspaper, I might want to sit down with that administrator and say, because this is what we do also at the Chronicle with our editors. Okay, we know we want to write the story. We know we want to inform our readers about what's going on. How can we do this in the fairest way? And to the administrator, of course, is it okay? Somebody's going to not like it. But if we learn how to do it fairly and impartially and clearly and tell both sides of the story and not make an opinion of our own, can we please go ahead with our job of journalism? I would hope your administrator would say yes, because it's a good thing to do.
All right, thank you so much.
I'm happy to talk with you further about it offline if you want to.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so Francis, you could later I will show you my email. You can email me your email or so, and I'll put you in touch with Nanette.
Yeah, sure. Thanks.
Yeah, so we have two questions that came up in the chat. One of them was about AI. Will the career of journalism be affected by AI? Let me just make sure I did that question right. Yeah. Okay, yeah. Do you think the job of journalists or part of it will be replaced by AI, or will it change anything?
Well, so I just came back from Columbia University reunion where we were talking about this question. And I don't think there's any danger of journalists being replaced by AI at this point, because AI is not sophisticated enough to ask the kind of questions. I mean, yeah, to ask the kind of questions that we are asking. So, maybe in decades from now that will change. I just don't know. But I'm going to say one good thing that AI does for journalism and one bad thing. The good thing is what I said. It's a tool that enables us to understand, like the example would be what happened on the ground in Gaza when the hospital was exploded. Where did that come from? AI enables journalists to look more closely. I couldn't do it. I don't know how to do it, but this guy was amazing. He's from the New York Times, and he was talking about, getting this view and that view and using AI to piece together what happened. And they determined that it was not, well, they determined that they couldn't tell where the airstrike came from. But yes, that's a good thing that AI can help a journalist do, and it's a good tool. The bad thing is, this is quite scary, actually, and it has to do with photo manipulation. Photography is journalism too. Maybe you guys are interested in photography. Photojournalism is an essential part of journalism. And so the scary thing is that AI can fake photos with such precision that many people can't tell the difference. And so it's a race. Technology is trying to get ahead of that, be able to have computer systems that can determine what's fake and what's not. And I really hope we do a good job with that, because that would be very, very terrible.
That is definitely, I couldn't even think of the good stuff about AI, because I'm so concerned about that. I'm so disturbed by that. I'm so concerned that eventually there might be no place we can go where we say, okay, if we see it there, we know it's okay. It's just so pervasive, and I'm frankly very worried about it, not because of my job or anything, but because what it means for all of us.
I was glad to know that they're working on technology to be able to tell if something's been manipulated. I thought that was hopeful.
The next question is, does journalism involve lots of travel and relocation? And it has to, do you have to have flexibility and irregular working hours?
That's a great question because that's really practical. So speaking just for myself, I have a family. I work, from 9 in the morning till 5:30 in the afternoon. I go to the gym. I have my weekends off. I have a really well-balanced life. And you can do that too if you're in journalism. Um, some people love to travel. They're going to have to find a newspaper with the budget to send you as a foreign correspondent or to the San Francisco Chronicle is a regional newspaper. So we cover the Bay Area, basically. I went to Stanford today. That's about as far from San Francisco as I'll likely to go, although sometimes I go to LA. The New York Times, the Washington Post, the LA Times, these are national newspapers, and so they do go around the country. My brother works for the New York Times, and he's a wine critic there. That's journalism too. If you like wine and you like to write about it, he goes around the world. So it depends on what you do and where you work.
Well, sometimes for me, it was travel was on a much more controlled basis. I don't need to travel for my current job, but when I worked for many years for a magazine, it was again in the trade publication category, and it was for veterans hospitals, hospitals in the VA. And once a month, I would go and I would interview 8 usually doctors, sometimes different types of healthcare providers at the hospital, write the story, we do a profile, in each issue of a VA hospital. So, I had a very set and interesting travel schedule. I probably never would have gone to Montana otherwise, or to Columbia, Missouri, or, some other, there's VA hospitals in all these little towns and stuff. But, that's a lot different than what Nanette does, where if they're going for breaking news or that kind of thing. Like there's with that, in trade journalism, you're gonna really be going more visiting the suppliers in that particular industry, and going to trade shows, which everyone loves. They're always a lot of fun, and that kind of thing. So it really depends.
Okay. And then I have a question. So I know you guys said that you don't really need to go to journalism school to get into journalism, but let's say if the high school students want to do some extracurricular activities, what would you suggest to help them get into journalism, pursue journalism in the future? And is it worth?
I'm going to jump in with one thing, because this is the only thing I'm going to have to say, and I am sure Nina has much better stuff.
To take any type of journalism classes if they're offered
there's they have outside of a regular curriculum, you at high school it might not be that way, but let's say immediately after you graduate from college, maybe, or long after that, like NYU has this publishing certificate program, and you get a certification that's becoming more recognized. And there are a lot of, I would suggest looking at different journalism or editorial type of organizations, and they always have different programs and different certifications. Again, I do a lot of healthcare stuff. There's some called the American Medical Writers Association, and some people have a certification from that. And, it's very kind of inside baseball, but if you're in that industry and people see you have this AMWA certification, it's oh, go to the head of the class kind of thing. So you can find those kinds of programs that are not just the straightforward, $65,000 a year thing. And I want to go, as I started my editorial career and I was working, I said to one of my mentor, I'm like, I think I really want to go to journalism school. He's like, why? You're living it. You don't need to go. You're doing it. So, all right. So I never went, but I think that certification was always a good idea. I just never really did it.
I would say that if your high school has a student newspaper, work on it. If your college has a student newspaper, that's the way to do it. Get the practice of journalism. You know, you're talking about journalism school, or I think San Francisco State has a wonderful journalism program. I don't think it's great necessarily to major in journalism because you want to get this broader background. You'll learn journalism, it's easy enough. But do it partially, you know, take classes if you want. But I think getting an internship, working on a school newspaper is great. You were talking about journalism school. The certificate to me is like maybe less interesting or less necessary than the perspective and the context that I got from a graduate journalism degree. I learned so much about the First Amendment, democracy, case law. There's a lot of legal stuff that goes into journalism. You know, your right to go and talk, to go into public buildings and get public records and demand this because it's our right as Americans to do it. It's not obvious how to do that. It's a lot of legal work that supports and creates our ability to do that. And so I learned about that stuff. And so I found the study of that was fascinating. But where to get practice? Student newspapers.
Good advice. We have another question in the chat. I am curious about how fast a journalist should write an article. So basically, I guess they're talking about deadlines, right?
Yeah. What I hear behind that question, maybe I'm wrong, I don't mean to read your mind or try to, is the fear that you can't write it fast enough and you might miss your deadline. Don't worry about it. Everybody makes their deadline. You get better at it the more you do it. I am not a fast writer, but in the world of online journalism, the beauty of it is that you can write 3 paragraphs and you could post it and you can make your deadline. And then you get it back. It's already posted. You've made your scoop. You've posted it. Now you can go back and relax. You know, back in the old days of print, it was scarier because you really had to do it all by 4 o'clock and, you know, you had to have it be perfect by 4. But now with online, you know, it's like, okay, I need to post that this crime happened and I don't want to get scooped. So I write my 3 paragraphs, we post it, and you're good. And then you can relax and do a little. I hope that eases your mind if you if you even were worried about it.
I had that exact experience when I worked for this consulting newsletter, and there was, believe it or not, big breaking news in the management consulting industry. A guy like at the top of the industry was leaving his organization. It was like the biggest deal in that little world. And I happened to be working late that night when I saw the news, and the news was like out in the public. Like our audience wouldn't necessarily have seen it yet. Like we would have been breaking it for our audience, and I didn't send anything out. And the next day, my boss was like, "Why didn't you do that?" And I'm like, "Well, first of all, we weren't like a breaking news kind of thing. It's not like I was looking for that." And I was like, I wasn't going to send news to our whole mailing list without checking with anybody. I'm like, I didn't even have any details. Like, it didn't matter. You should have just said, George Shaheen, leaves Arthur Anderson. I think that was the headline. And they're like, we would have dealt with it the next day. This was like when the internet was just becoming a thing, and I would have been sending this to an email list. There wasn't like really big websites or anything at that point. Anyway, so I've always kept that with me, but that's exactly what Nanette's talking about. I could have just posted that, and then our publication would have been remembered for doing that, and I could have filled in the blanks later,
It's the beauty of the internet. We can do it now.
Yeah. we're gonna start wrapping up this meeting. Is there any other pressing questions? Okay, if not, let me just share my screen again. Probably sorry. I'm gonna try this again. I pressed it wrong. Okay. And it's not- wait. Okay, now I'm trying to find. Sorry. What happened here?
Young Pei, can I make one comment?
Yeah.
I wanted to just explain why, very briefly, why I was asking everybody where they get their news. For the people who said they get it from the internet and Google, I just wanted to say that the internet and Google get it from us. So that's where you get your news. The internet and Google don't, magically have this news. Somebody has to go out and talk to the people and write the stories. And so that's a journalist. And that was the only point I wanted to make about that.
Okay, you're on mute. I think you're talking, but you're on mute.
Okay, let's try it again now. Sorry, guys. Let's see. Okay, well, this is my email. If you have any other questions about journalism that I can forward to Nanette or Delicia, you can just email me. Our last career series session next month will be about the computer science industry, and I'll send out reminders to those who have already signed up. I want to say thank you to Nanette and also Delicia for, and Delicia was also zooming in from New York, so she's on New York time here. Thank you for joining us, and thanks to everybody else who joined us. And have a good night.
Thank you all so much. Thank you for having me. I enjoyed
Yes,
it.
thank you guys so much. It was really great to hear from you and hear everything that everyone had to say.
Night.
Good night.